You're telling me you don't have my money? Vincent Caruso's voice cut through the kitchen like a blade, his knuckles white as he gripped the stainless steel counter. The smell of fresh mozzarella and basil hung in the air, but Marco Bellini couldn't taste anything except the metallic tang of fear in his mouth. 3 men in expensive suits stood between him and the back exit of his Brooklyn pizzeria, and Marco knew this conversation would change everything. Marco wiped his flour-covered hands on his apron, his mind racing. He'd opened Bellini's pizzeria 8 months ago with his life savings, a dream passed down from his grandfather, who'd immigrated from Naples in 1952. Now that dream was drowning in debt, and the men standing in his kitchen weren't from the bank. "Mr. Caruso, I just need 2 more weeks. The holiday rush is coming and—" 2 weeks? Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in it. He walked closer, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the tile floor. "You've had 8 months, Marco. 8 months of our protection, our suppliers, our connections. And what do we get? Excuses. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one." Marco's wife, Sophia, appeared in the doorway connecting the kitchen to their small apartment above the pizzeria. Her eyes met his, and he saw the question there. "Should I call someone?" He shook his head almost imperceptibly. Calling the cops would be signing their death warrant. "I have a proposal," Marco said, his voice steadier than he felt. "What if I could help you expand? I know every pizzeria owner in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. I could be useful." Vincent studied him for a long moment, then nodded to one of his men, who handed him a manila folder. "You think you're the first struggling pizza man to come to us with bright ideas? Let me show you something." He spread photos across the counter. Dozens of pizzerias, their names circled in red. Tony's Pizza Palace, Giovanni's Original, Sal's Famous Pies, Maria's Kitchen. Some Marco recognized, others he didn't. "Every one of these places is part of our network," Vincent said. "We don't just protect them, Marco. We own them. The suppliers, the distributors, the waste management, the linen services, all of it flows through us. You want to know how much money moves through pizza boxes in this city every year? Try $400 million, and that's just what the health department knows about." Marco's stomach dropped. This wasn't about loan sharking. This was industrial-scale organized crime, and he'd just been offered a front-row seat. "I don't understand." "These are legitimate businesses. How do we make money?" Vincent finished. "Simple. Every pizza place needs supplies. We control the suppliers. They need to dispose of waste. We control the sanitation contracts. They need linens, uniforms, cleaning services. We provide all of it at rates that would make Wall Street jealous. And the best part, it's all legal. Well, mostly legal." He pulled out another set of documents. Financial statements, tax returns, ledgers filled with numbers that made Marco's head spin. "But the real magic happens in the accounting," Vincent continued, warming to his subject now. "You take a pizzeria that makes $2,000 on a Saturday night. We can make the books show 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, whatever we need. Cash from our other operations flows through pizza shops like water through a pipe. The IRS sees thriving small businesses. We see the perfect laundromat." "Money laundering," Marco whispered. "Cash management," Vincent corrected with a smile. "And you're going to help us expand it. See, we have a problem. The old-timers, the guys who've been running their shops for 30 years, they're dying off. Their kids don't want to work 16-hour days making dough, so we need new blood. Young guys like you who understand the business but need financial assistance to get started." "And if I say no?" Vincent's expression hardened. "You already said yes when you took our money 8 months ago. You just didn't know what you were signing up for. Now you do. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep running your pizzeria exactly like you have been. But now, you're also going to start talking to other struggling shop owners. Young guys, old guys, doesn't matter. Anyone who needs money to stay afloat. You're going to tell them about our program. How we provide startup capital, supplier connections, guaranteed customers. And if they ask questions, you tell them the truth, that we take a percentage of their profits in exchange for our services. What you don't tell them is exactly how much money flows through their businesses or where it comes from. That's need-to-know information. One of Vincent's men, a younger guy with slicked-back hair and cold eyes, stepped forward. We're also going to need you to expand. There's a property in Williamsburg, right on Bedford Avenue. Prime location, tons of foot traffic. We're going to help you open a second location there. I can barely keep this place running, Marco protested. How am I supposed to? You'll have help, Vincent interrupted. We'll provide the capital, the staff, everything you need. All you have to do is sign the papers and show up for the photo opportunities. Local boy makes good, expands his family business. Great story for the community papers. Marco looked around his kitchen at the imported Italian oven his grandfather had saved 3 years to buy, at the recipe books filled with handwritten notes spanning 4 generations. This was supposed to be his legacy, not a front for organized crime. What choice do I have? He asked quietly. The smart one, Vincent said, extending his hand. Welcome to the family business, Marco. The real family business. As they shook hands, Marco felt the weight of what he'd just become. Not just a pizza maker anymore, but a cog in a machine that churned out more than just food. He was now part of an empire built on dough, both kinds. After Vincent and his men left, Sophia came down from the apartment, her face pale. I heard everything, she said. What are we going to do? Marco pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, trying to find comfort in the familiar. What can we do? We survive. We play along until we figure out a way out. And if there is no way out? That was the question that would keep him awake for months to come. Because even then, standing in his kitchen with his wife in his arms, Marco understood a fundamental truth. The Mafia didn't let people leave. Once you were in until death or prison, whichever came first. The next morning, Marco opened his pizzeria at 6 a.m. as usual, prepping dough for the day's orders. But everything felt different now. Every customer who walked through the door, every delivery he made, every dollar that went into the register, all of it was tainted. At noon, a truck pulled up with his regular flour delivery. But the driver was different this time. A burly man with a thick Brooklyn accent who handed Marco an envelope along with the invoice. What's this? Marco asked. Your new supplier agreement. Mr. Caruso wanted you to have it right away. You'll notice the prices are a bit higher than your old supplier, but the quality is worth it. Trust me. Marco opened the envelope and scanned the contract. The flour was now costing him 30% more than before. Same with the cheese, the tomatoes, the olive oil, everything. The additional cost would eat up most of his profits, leaving him dependent on whatever other revenue streams Vincent had planned. There's also this, the driver said, handing him a second envelope, thicker this time. Your participation bonus for the first month. Mr. Caruso is generous with people who cooperate. Inside was $10,000 in cash. Marco's hands trembled as he counted it. This was more money than he'd made in profit all year. It would pay for Sophia's mother's medical bills, fix the leaking roof on the apartment, maybe even buy them a little breathing room. Blood money, he thought. But money nonetheless. "One more thing," the driver said, lowering his voice. "There's a guy, Tommy Rizzo, owns a place called Rizzo's Pizzeria over on Atlantic Avenue. Word is he's struggling, behind on rent. Suppliers are cutting him off. Mr. Caruso thinks you two should have a conversation. You know, one pizza man to another. Share some advice about how you turned your business around." And there it was, his first assignment. Marco nodded slowly, tucking the cash back into the envelope. "I'll reach out to him this week." "Good man." Mr. Caruso knew you'd see reason. As the truck pulled away, Marco stood in the doorway of his pizzeria, watching the morning foot traffic stream past. Somewhere in this city, Tommy Rizzo was probably working his ovens right now, worrying about the same things Marco had worried about just yesterday. Bills, suppliers, rent, keeping his dream alive. And Marco was about to become the spider in the web, drawing him in. He thought about his grandfather, about the pride in the old man's eyes when he'd first taught young Marco how to toss dough, how to spread sauce just right, how to create something beautiful and nourishing from simple ingredients. What would he think of his grandson now? Marco went back inside and got to work. The lunch rush would start soon, and the pizza wouldn't make itself. In a few hours, he'd close up and drive over to Atlantic Avenue, introduce himself to Tommy Rizzo, and begin the process of destroying another man's dream to save his own. That was the real recipe for success in the pizza mafia. Take 1 part desperation, add 2 parts coercion, season with cash, and bake until someone's soul is thoroughly compromised. The oven timer dinged. Time to put in the first pies of the day. Marco opened the oven door, and the heat hit him like a wave, but it was nothing compared to the heat he'd brought down on himself and everyone he cared about. He slid the pizzas in and watched through the glass as they began to transform, the cheese bubbling, the crust turning golden brown. Just like his life, he thought. Everything changing under pressure, becoming something entirely different from what it started as. And the worst part? There was no going back to raw dough. Tommy Rizzo's pizzeria was smaller than Marco expected, squeezed between a laundromat and a bodega on a block that had seen better days. The paint was peeling on the sign outside, and through the window, Marco could see only 2 customers, both elderly men nursing slices and coffee. Marco took a deep breath and pushed open the door. A bell chimed overhead, and a man in his 40s looked up from behind the counter. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slumped with the weight of too many problems and not enough solutions. "Help you?" Tommy asked. "Tommy Rizzo? I'm Marco Bellini. I own Bellini's over in Brooklyn. I heard through the grapevine you might be looking for some help with suppliers, and I thought maybe we could talk." Tommy's expression shifted from wary to hopeful in an instant. "Yeah? Man, I'm drowning here. My cheese supplier just dropped me, and the bank is breathing down my neck about the loan payments. You got connections?" Marco felt something twist in his chest. This was it. The moment where he became exactly what Vincent Caruso wanted him to be. "I might," he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Let me buy you a coffee and we can talk about your options." Tommy poured 2 cups of coffee, his hands shaking slightly as he set one in front of Marco. The afternoon sun slanted through the grimy windows, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. In the back, Marco could hear the hum of a struggling refrigerator, the kind of sound that meant expensive repairs were just around the corner. "So, what kind of connections are we talking about?" Tommy asked, sitting down across from him. "Because I've tried every supplier in the city, and they all want cash up front these days. Nobody does credit anymore." Marco wrapped his hands around the coffee cup, buying himself time. This was the moment. He could warn Tommy, tell him to run, to sell the place and get out while he still could. But Vincent's words echoed in his mind. "You already said yes when you took our money. I work with a group that specializes in helping struggling pizzerias." Marco began, choosing his words carefully. They provide supplier connections, capital for improvements, guaranteed delivery contracts with local businesses. The catch is, they take a percentage of your profits in exchange. How much of a percentage depends on what you need. But Tommy, I'm going to be straight with you. These aren't the kind of people you negotiate hard with. They're fair, but they expect loyalty and on-time payments. Tommy's eyes narrowed. You're talking about connected guys, aren't you? The kind with Italian last names and expensive suits? Marco didn't answer directly, but his silence was confirmation enough. Jesus, Tommy breathed, running his hand through his thinning hair. I don't know, man. I've heard stories. Once you get involved with those people... You think you have a choice? Marco interrupted, his voice harder than he intended. How long before the bank forecloses? 2 months? 3? What happens to your family then? The words felt like acid in his mouth, because he was describing his own situation just days ago. He was becoming Vincent's mouthpiece, using the same pressure tactics that had been used on him. Tommy stared into his coffee cup. I got 2 kids, Marco, 7 and 9 years old. My wife, she works at the hospital, double shifts, just to keep us afloat. This pizzeria, it's all I know. My father ran it, my grandfather before him. If I lose it... Then don't lose it, Marco said. Take the help. Keep your doors open. Feed your family. And what do I have to do besides pay them their percentage? This was the part Marco had been dreading. Sometimes they might ask you to handle cash transactions that aren't exactly related to pizza. You keep records a certain way. You don't ask too many questions about where the money comes from or where it goes. You just manage your business. Tommy's face went pale. Money laundering. You're asking me to launder money for the mob. I'm asking you to survive, Marco said quietly. Everything else is just details. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The refrigerator hummed. A car horn blared outside. Life kept moving forward, indifferent to the choices being made in this rundown pizzeria. How do I contact them? Tommy finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marco pulled out a business card, plain white, just a phone number, no name. Call this number, tell them Marco Bellini sent you. They'll set up a meeting. Tommy took the card with trembling fingers. Did they get you too? Is that how you know about all this? Marco stood up, leaving money on the counter for the coffee. We do what we have to do, Tommy. That's all any of us can do. As he walked out into the cooling afternoon air, Marco felt like he'd left something important behind in that pizzeria. Maybe it was his integrity. Maybe it was the last piece of the man he used to be. He drove back to Brooklyn in silence, the city sprawling around him in all its chaotic glory. Somewhere in these streets, Vincent Caruso was building his empire one pizza shop at a time, and Marco was now his recruiting officer, his Judas goat, leading other desperate men to slaughter. When he got home, Sophia was waiting with dinner on the table. Ironically, it was pizza, made with his own hands earlier that day. The smell that used to bring him joy now made him nauseous. How did it go? She asked as he sat down. I recruited him. He'll call the number. Sophia set down her fork. Marco, we need to talk about this, really talk, because what we're doing, what you're becoming, what choice do we have? He snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. I'm sorry, Sophia, but tell me what choice we have. We owe them money. They own our suppliers. They could shut us down tomorrow if they wanted to. We could go to the police and tell them what? That we took a loan from connected guys and now they want us to help expand their business. What law have they broken that we haven't been part of? We're already complicit, Sophia. The moment I took that first payment, we became criminals too. She reached across the table and took his hand. Then we run. We leave the city, start over somewhere else. Montana, Oregon, Alaska, somewhere they can't find us. Marco wanted to believe it was possible, but he'd seen the photos in Vincent's folder, the network that stretched across the city. These people had resources, connections, reach. You didn't just walk away from an organization like this. They'd find us, he said. And when they did, they'd make an example of us. Not just me. You too. Maybe your mother. Anyone we care about. So we're trapped. We're trapped. They ate in silence, the pizza tasting like cardboard in Marco's mouth. Afterward, he went down to the pizzeria to prep for the next day, losing himself in the familiar rhythms of dough and sauce, trying to find some small piece of the life he used to have. The phone rang at 9 p.m. Marco almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Marco, it's Tommy. I called the number. They're sending someone to meet with me tomorrow." His voice was tight with anxiety. "I just wanted to say, thanks, I guess, for giving me an option." "Don't thank me, Tommy. Just keep your head down and do what they say." Yeah, I will." A pause. "Marco, are we going to hell for this?" Marco looked around his kitchen, at the stainless steel and tile, at the ovens that had seemed like a gateway to his dreams just months ago. "I think we're already there, Tommy. We just haven't realized it yet." After he hung up, Marco pulled out the envelope with the $10,000. Blood money, he'd called it. But it was also his mother-in-law's medical treatments, his leaking roof, his wife's peace of mind. How did you weigh one against the other? How did you calculate the cost of compromise? The bell above the door chimed, and Marco looked up to see Vincent Caruso walking in, flanked by the same cold-eyed young man from before. "Burning the midnight oil, Marco? That's what I like to see. Dedication." "What are you doing here?" Marco asked, wiping his hands on his apron. "Heard you had a productive meeting with Tommy Rizzo today. I wanted to congratulate you personally. You've got a gift for this, Marco. You know how to talk to people, make them see reason." I just told him his options. "Exactly, and that's a valuable skill." Vincent pulled out a leather folder and set it on the counter. "Which is why we're accelerating your expansion timeline. The Williamsburg location, we're breaking ground next week, but I've got something else for you too." He opened the folder, revealing architectural plans for a much larger space. Manhattan, Lower East Side. 3,000 square feet, prime corner location. We're going to call it Bellini's Original, position it as the flagship, upscale pizzeria, craft cocktails, the whole 9 yards. Marco stared at the plans. "I can't manage 3 locations. I barely have time for one." "You'll have managers. We'll provide them. All you need to do is be the face of the brand. Do some interviews, take some photos, make some appearances, let the community see their local success story." "And what's the real business?" Vincent smiled. "The Manhattan location will do about $2 million a year in legitimate revenue. We estimate we can move another $6 million through the books without raising any red flags. The beauty of a high-end restaurant is the per-customer spending is so variable that the numbers can justify almost anything." The young man, Vincent had called him Dante, spoke up for the first time. "We've got cash coming in from gambling operations in New Jersey, loan sharking in Queens, and some distribution businesses that don't like being too visible. It all needs to be cleaned, documented, taxed. Your restaurants are going to be the washing machines. And if I get audited, then you'll have the best accountants in the city, making sure everything looks perfect," Vincent said. "Marco, you're thinking too small. You're still seeing yourself as a pizza maker who got in over his head." "But I see potential. You could be running a restaurant empire in 5 years, 10 locations, 20, your kids going to private schools, your wife driving a Mercedes. All you have to do is play ball." Marco thought about Sophia's question. Are we going to hell for this? But looking at Vincent's plans, at the future being laid out before him, he realized hell wasn't some distant destination. It was a path you walked one small compromise at a time, until you couldn't remember where the line used to be. "When do we start?" Marco heard himself say. "That's my guy." Vincent clapped him on the shoulder. "Dante will be your liaison. Anything you need, any problems that come up, you call him. He'll make sure everything runs smooth." Dante handed Marco a new business card. This one actually had a name on it. Dante Moretti, business consultant. The phone number had a 212 area code. "Manhattan. One more thing," Vincent said as they headed for the door. "Tommy Rizzo, we're meeting with him tomorrow afternoon. I want you there. Show him a familiar face. Help him feel comfortable with the process." "You want me to hold his hand while you trap him?" Vincent's expression hardened. "I want you to remember who you work for now, Marco. And I want Tommy to see what cooperation looks like, how success is rewarded. You're a role model now. Act like it." After they left, Marco locked the door and turned off all the lights except one over the prep station. He sat in the darkness, surrounded by the tools of his trade, and tried to figure out when exactly he'd stopped being Marco Bellini, pizza maker, and became Marco Bellini, criminal. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Come to bed. We'll figure it out together." But there was nothing to figure out. The choice had already been made, the path already chosen. All that remained was to walk it and hope that somewhere down the line there might be an exit that didn't end in handcuffs or a body bag. Marco climbed the stairs to their apartment, each step feeling heavier than the last. Tomorrow he would stand beside Vincent Caruso and watch another man make the same devil's bargain he'd made. Tomorrow he would smile and shake hands and pretend that everything was going to be fine. Tomorrow he would be exactly what the pizza mafia needed him to be, a recruiter, a face, a success story. Tonight he was just a man who'd sold his soul for flour and cheese and the chance to keep his dreams alive a little longer. He slipped into bed beside Sophia, pulling her close in the darkness. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," she replied, "no matter what happens." But they both knew that love might not be enough to save them from what was coming. The next afternoon, Marco found himself back in Vincent's office, a space he hadn't seen before. It was in a nondescript building in Midtown, the kind of place you'd walk past 1,000 times without noticing. The office itself was surprisingly mundane. Nice furniture, but not ostentatious. Framed photos of Italian landscapes on the walls. A large desk with neat stacks of papers. Vincent sat behind that desk, every inch the legitimate businessman. Dante stood by the window, watching the street below, and Marco sat on a leather couch, waiting for Tommy Rizzo to arrive and seal his fate. The buzzer sounded. Dante spoke into an intercom, then nodded to Vincent. "He's here." A moment later, Tommy walked in, looking smaller somehow than he had in his own pizzeria. His eyes found Marco immediately, seeking reassurance from the only familiar thing in the room. "Tommy, thanks for coming," Vincent said warmly, standing to shake his hand. "I'm Vincent Caruso. This is Dante Moretti. I believe you already know Marco." "Yeah, Marco and I talked." Tommy's voice was uncertain. Good. Please sit. Can I get you something? Coffee, water?" "I'm fine, thanks." Vincent sat back down, steepling his fingers. "So Marco tells me you're having some supplier issues, cash flow problems, the kind of things that keep a business owner up at night." "That's right. Well, the good news is we can help with all of that. We have relationships with suppliers throughout the city. We can get you everything you need, cheese, flour, toppings, everything, at competitive prices with flexible payment terms." "What's the catch?" Vincent smiled. "Direct. I like that. The catch is simple. We become partners in your business. We front the capital to get you back on your feet. We provide ongoing support and resources. And in exchange, we take 40% of your net profits." Tommy's eyes widened. 40%. "That's industry standard for this type of arrangement," Vincent interrupted smoothly. And consider what you're getting. Not just supplies, but protection. Nobody messes with our partners. Suppliers treat you right. Health inspectors don't find problems. The neighborhood stays safe. That kind of peace of mind is worth the investment. Protection, Tommy repeated slowly. From what? From all the things that can go wrong in this business. Fires, theft, vandalism, sudden visits from city officials. You'd be surprised how many accidents happen to unprotected businesses. The threat was barely veiled. Marco watched Tommy process it, saw the moment understanding clicked into place. This wasn't a business opportunity, it was an offer he couldn't refuse. And if I say no? Vincent's smile never wavered. Then you say no, and you solve your problems on your own. But I should mention that our supplier network won't do business with people who've declined our partnership, and sometimes word gets around to other suppliers too. Suddenly everyone's too busy to take your calls. Unfortunate, but it happens. Tommy looked at Marco. Is that what happened to you? Marco wanted to lie, to spare Tommy the truth. But Vincent was watching, and this moment was a test for both of them. Yes, Marco said quietly. They approached me when I was behind on payments. Now my business is expanding, 3 locations by next year. And you're okay with this, with what they're asking? Marco met Tommy's eyes. I'm surviving, Tommy. My family is safe. My business is growing. Sometimes that's the best you can hope for. Tommy turned back to Vincent. What else? You said supplies and protection. What else comes with this partnership? Smart question. Vincent pulled out a folder similar to the one he'd shown Marco. Sometimes we'll need you to handle cash transactions that aren't directly related to pizza sales. You'll ring them up like normal orders, keep the receipts, report them on your taxes. The money is clean. It's just coming from other legitimate businesses in our network. We're simply streamlining the payment processing. Money laundering, cash management, Vincent corrected. And it's completely safe. We have accountants who make sure everything is documented properly. You'll never be at risk, unless the feds come knocking. The feds are interested in big fish, Tommy, not neighborhood pizzerias. Besides, what they'll see is a successful small business doing exactly what it should be doing, serving customers and paying taxes. Dante finally spoke up from his position by the window. We've been running this system for 15 years. Not one of our partners has ever had legal trouble. We take care of our people. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Marco could see him weighing his options, running through the scenarios. Refuse and lose everything. Accept and become part of something criminal. Either way, his life as he knew it was over. How soon can you get me back up and running? Tommy finally asked. Vincent's smile widened. We can have supplies delivered tomorrow. Cash in your account by end of business today. Just need you to sign some paperwork first. Dante produced a stack of contracts from a briefcase. Marco knew what they were. He'd signed similar documents himself. Partnership agreements, supplier contracts, financial arrangements, all perfectly legal on paper, all damning in practice. Tommy read through them slowly, his hand shaking slightly as he turned pages. When he got to the signature line, he looked up one last time. This is really the only way. It's the smart way, Vincent said. The way that keeps you in business, keeps your family fed, keeps your father's legacy alive. Everything else is just details. Tommy signed. As Dante collected the papers, Vincent stood and came around the desk, shaking Tommy's hand again. Welcome to the family, Tommy. You made the right choice. Now Marco here is going to help you through the transition, show you the ropes, introduce you to the key people in our network. He's a good teacher. Marco felt the weight of those words. He wasn't just a partner anymore. He was middle management in a criminal organization, responsible for training new recruits. "One last thing," Vincent said, pulling an envelope from his desk drawer. "Signing bonus, 10,000 cash. Consider it a show of good faith." Tommy took the envelope with numb fingers. Marco remembered that feeling, the moment when the money made it real, when you couldn't pretend anymore that this was just business. After Tommy left, Vincent poured himself a glass of scotch from a crystal decanter. "You did well today, Marco. Very well. Tommy trusts you, which makes him trust us. That's exactly what we need." "I feel like I just destroyed his life." "You saved his life," Vincent corrected. "In 6 months he'll have money in the bank, regular customers, no worries about foreclosure. He'll thank you." "Will he?" "They all do, eventually." Vincent sipped his scotch. "Guilt is a luxury for people who have choices, Marco. You and Tommy, you're past that now. So stop worrying about what you should have done and start focusing on what you're going to do next. Which is build, grow, become someone important in this organization. You've got potential, more than most of the mutts I deal with. Use it." Marco left the office and took the subway back to Brooklyn, Tommy's envelope burning in his pocket, along with his own previous bonus. $20,000 total, but it might as well have been 30 pieces of silver. When he got home, Sophia took one look at his face and pulled him into her arms. "It's done? It's done." They stood that way for a long time, holding each other in the gathering darkness. Two people trying to find solid ground in a world that kept shifting beneath their feet. That night, Marco dreamed of his grandfather, standing in the old pizzeria from his childhood, flour dusting his weathered hands. In the dream, his grandfather spoke in Italian. "È ancora il nostro pane, Marco. Non importa chi paga per questo. It's still our bread, Marco, no matter who pays for it." But when Marco woke, he couldn't remember if that was comfort or condemnation. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of activity. The Williamsburg location opened with a splash. Local press coverage, a ribbon-cutting ceremony, city councilmen there for photos. Marco smiled for the cameras, shook hands with community leaders, played the part of local entrepreneur, made good. Behind the scenes, Dante was installing his own people as managers, setting up the cash handling systems, establishing the protocols that would allow millions of dollars to flow through the restaurant while looking like legitimate business. Tommy's Pizzeria got its facelift too, new equipment, fresh paint, a revamped menu. Within a month, he had lines out the door, mostly consisting of customers sent by Vincent's network to create the appearance of success. Marco recruited 2 more owners during this time, an Italian grandmother whose husband had just died and left her with a failing pizzeria and crushing debt, and a young couple from Queens who'd invested their entire savings into a pizza shop that was bleeding money. Each recruitment followed the same pattern. Initial contact, casual conversation, gradual revelation of the opportunity, introduction to Vincent, signatures on contracts, envelopes of cash. Each time, Marco died a little more inside, but the money kept coming. Sophia's mother got her treatments. They fixed the roof. They opened a savings account for the first time in years. The American dream, purchased at the cost of Marco's soul.